3 judges in attendance. 4 judges. We're just waiting for, I think, Judge Hudson.
That's right.
Yeah. Or no, Judge Cornett.
I think, yeah, Judge Hudson left, and I think we're just waiting for.
Just waiting for Judge Cornett.
Mhm.
In the meanwhile, opponents, can you send your emails in the chat for an email chain? I think Judge Stiles, Judge Murray, I have your emails. You guys would like to be included?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. And Judge Sophia, you would you want to be included?
Oh my gosh, sorry. I'm okay as well. It's okay.
All right, thank you.
Mhm. Just as a note, we're going to be sending all the judges our speech doc so that they can follow along more easier. If I think I can get some emails from the Paradigm, and then if everyone else could put theirs in the chat. Thank you.
So I think everyone is in attendance.
Whenever you guys are ready, you can get started.
Yeah.
Just to, okay. Thank you. Just give us a sec. We're adding everyone to the speech docs.
Judge Cornett, just checking, would you want to be added on the email chain?
Yep, let me drop my email.
No problem. Thank you.
So I believe we sent it to all the judges if they could check.
And I've just sent out the email chain.
I think your camera is not on. There you
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, so I think I got the email for the email chain.
I got the email as well.
Yeah, I got your speeches.
Okay, and the other judges for the speech doc? Yeah, I got both of the emails.
Received.
In that case, everyone ready? Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just to quickly introduce myself, I'm Arna Parikh on the next side of today's debate, speaking first, and I'm the first speaker. If everyone could introduce themselves, just to be clear.
Yes, my name is Tanush Chakshi, all judges. I will be the second speaker for today's debate, and I am on the And we're on the negation side for today's debate.
I'm Aditya first speaker for Brooks debate, also from Brooks debate, and we're speaking on the AF side.
Team USA, Daria Garnani, second speaker on the affirmative side. And I've just sent our speech doc to all judges.
So is everyone ready, or are we still waiting for confirmation on the speech talks?
I got speech docs on my end.
Me as well.
Okay. That case, if everyone's ready, just give me a quick second. Off time. Hello, judges. My name is Arna Parikh, and our team negates today's topic, resolved on balance in the United States. The benefits of presidential executive orders outweigh the harms. As a note, judges will be using the acronym EO for presidential executive order throughout the round. My time begins on my next word. Our framework is human rights, the most fundamental standard for judging government action. Benjamin Franklin warned, "Those who give essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." This round should be evaluated through that lens. Violations of human dignity and rights through EOs cause irreparable harm, lives lost, families torn apart, and trust eroded. No short-term policy can justify permanent damage to human dignity and outweigh the lasting harms. Contention 1, Japanese internment. In 1942, EO 9066 ordered the forced removal and incarceration of over 120,000 people of Japanese descent, 2/3 of whom were American citizens. Innocent families were torn apart, stripped of their property and businesses, incarcerated without trial. Their only crime was their ancestry. Japanese Americans were given just 48 hours to evacuate, told to bring only what they could carry, and herded into assembly centers before internment, eerily mirroring the Nazi deportations of Jews in Europe at the time. The conditions in these internment camps were horrendous. People slept on canvas bags stuffed with hay and packed into barren barracks, often with no heat, plumbing, or medical care. They were forced to work hard with little or no pay. Countless families were separated in their dying moments. Barbed wire and armed guards surrounded the camps, instructed to shoot anyone who tried to escape. Even after they were released, tragedy followed them. Japanese Americans lost nearly $2.36 billion in properties and assets. Many returned to find their homes stolen or destroyed with no compensation. 120,000 people went through this. 120,000 stories impacted. Tens of thousands of families changed forever. It's clear, EOs have the power to destroy rights, families, and futures, and have done so in the past and will continue to do so in the future. Contention 2, Patriot Act. The USA Patriot Act was passed after the tragic Ground Zero in 2001. Instead of fulfilling its intended goal of countering terrorism, the Patriot Act has become a tool for violating civil liberties and perpetuating systemic human rights violations. Its most abusive implementations were carried out by EOs and presidential directives. These abuses show up in 4 key ways. Number 1, mass surveillance. The National Security Agency has collected and continues to collect call records of millions of Americans regardless of guilt, suspicion, or consent. In 2020, a federal appeals court ruled that this was illegal and unconstitutional, but yet it persists. This violates the Fourth Amendment right to privacy. 2, unchecked intrusions of privacy. The act allows the FBI and other agencies to enter and search your homes without informing the owner immediately. In 2013, over 11,000 of these were issued, with only 0.005% of these related to terrorism, highlighting the act's broad misuse. The FBI can also secretly seize your phone, financial, and internet records without court approval. In 2023 alone, the FBI conducted more than 57,000 warrantless data searches on U.S. citizens, according to The Verge. What was meant for terrorists now targets ordinary Americans. 3, racial profiling of thousands of Muslims, Arabs, and South Asians. This isn't just discriminatory, it has lasting systematic consequences. First, it erodes the 14th Amendment's guarantee of equal protection by targeting individuals solely for their race or faith. Second, it creates a chilling effect on religious and civic life. As per the ACLU, fear of the Patriot Act caused a decline in mosque membership and donations. This is a direct assault on First Amendment freedoms. Third, it causes long-term psychological harm and community alienation, contributing to stigma, mental health issues, and distrust in public institutions, as well as perpetuation of discrimination and racism and its norms and public policy. Fourth, it's counterproductive to actual national security. When communities are alienated and afraid, cooperation with law enforcement drops. As per the ACLU, these practices generate flawed intelligence and damage trust in authorities. Major profiling programs under the Patriot Act, such as Operation Frontline and NYPD Moss surveillance, produce no terrorism-related threats, rather misallocated resources. In short, profiling doesn't protect national security, it undermines it. 4. Chilling effect on free speech and activism. Activist journalist organizations begin self-censoring. Fear of being watched caused people to limit their communications, web browsing, or peaceful protests. Civil liberties groups such as ACLU and Greenpeace were heavily monitored. In fact, PEN America conducted a survey revealing that 75% of writers in democratic countries self-censor due to fears of mass surveillance. In sum, the Patriot Act unleashed mass surveillance, racial profiling, and government overreach, eroding civil rights, fueling discrimination, hurting democracy, and weakening national security. Judge, EOs have enabled some of the worst human rights abuses in U.S. history, tearing apart lives, violating civil liberties, and proving that their harms outweigh any benefits. For these reasons, we urge a negation ballot. Thank you.
All right. Just to confirm that all judges received the AF speech doc. Judges, did we all get the speech doc for the AF side? All right. So then I'll get started. Before I begin, my name is Aditya Utla from Brooks Debate. Speaking on the AF side of today's debate, time will begin on my first word, which is now. In 1776, the Great American Experiment began. Rather than a constitution, we had the Articles of Confederation. Scared of presidential overreach, it had no executive branch, no power to enforce laws, and no authority to act swiftly. A decade later, as rebellions went unanswered and the economy crumbled, we learned that a country without a leader is not a country at all. Like a general without command or a CEO without authority, the president without executive orders is just a figurehead, stripped of the tools to lead our country. That's why the Robert Morris University concluded that without such powers, countries lose wars, fall to economic crisis, and endanger the very existence of their state. Thus, my partner Daria and I strongly affirm today's topic. Resolved on balance in the United States, the benefits of presidential executive orders outweigh the harms. Our sole argument is preserving the Union. As the webs of bureaucracy restrict action, executive orders break through in two key ways. The first is dealing with crisis. Subpoint A is natural disasters. Natural disasters are devastating as the World Wildlife Fund 25 finds that wildfires in California and floods in North Carolina have shaken millions of lives and caused billions of dollars in damage. And they're only going to get worse as climate change is going to increase the intensity and frequency of extreme disasters. But Congress fails to act. Lightman 25 finds that Congress took a year and a half to respond to the Hawaii fires and 2 months to the floods in North Carolina. Congress is unable to deliver help when disaster strikes. And that's why executive orders are crucial. Law 121 explains that emergencies require decisive leadership and no one is better equipped to deliver that than the president. A good plan executed now is better than a perfect plan executed next week. Fast and efficient action is key. Duncan 10 reaffirms that the country would be at significant harm if the president has to wait for Congress in times of natural disasters. Responding to disaster quickly is crucial, as Swanwick 24 quantifies that every dollar invested in risk prevention saves $15 in recovery. Subpoint B is the economy. Congress is highly efficient, as Bogan 24 finds that Congress is the least productive it's been in 50 years. However, our rapid economy needs quick policy. Shepard et al. 21 explains that economic problems only worsen without immediate government response. Thus, executive orders are key. Pandas 23 writes that presidents use executive orders to stabilize the economy during times of downturn by suspending regulations, controlling prices, and providing financial assistance. Specifically, executive orders uniquely create economic growth. Contra in Mile 16 finds that when presidents issue executive orders, global markets respond, increasing the value of the dollar. Historical precedent couldn't agree more. For example, even during the worst spiral in American history, the Great Depression, the National Archives reports that Congress refused to take action. But thankfully, FDR solved by creating over 12 million jobs through executive orders. Without executive orders to prevent and mitigate recession, the impact is detrimental, as Bradford 13 quantifies that 900 million people would fall into poverty. The second benefit is taking action. Congress may write laws, but they don't illustrate how to implement them. The ACUS in 2012 warns that in every sphere of socioeconomic politics, bills have no coordination plan, lack implementation directions, and have redundant regulations. regulations. Executive orders fill the gap. For instance, 25 reports that executive orders provide federal agencies with enforcement mechanisms and instructions, with the CRS in 2021 finding that multiple agencies work together and coordinate the drafting of executive orders. For example, during the 2008 financial crisis, Senator Sarah C. explains how while facing party divisions and legislative delay, President Obama issued an executive order to lay the groundwork for healthcare reform. It built the necessary framework ready, so when Congress passed the Affordable Care Act in 2010, the implementation framework was ready. And holistically, many historic studies depended on executive orders to function. UCSB asked that both the Clean Air and Water Act were followed by executive order implementation plans, which the WNO has found has saved millions of lives and trillions of dollars. AAMC finds that the executive orders expanded implementation of the Affordable Care Act to over 5 million previously uninsured. By circumventing Congress when it fails to act and functioning as the tool for implementation even when it does, executive orders have built the foundation of America. For all of these reasons, affirm. All right, ready for cross?
Yeah, and before we start cross, can we always get the first question since we spoke first?
Yeah, so for all our classes, we'll give you the first question and I'll start telling you your first word.
Okay. Starting right now. So I believe in FDR, you said 900 million will fall into poverty, right? If FDR hadn't created, hadn't passed those EOs, right?
No, the impact is that today, like if there was a big recession today, similar to like, for example, the Great Recession, then 900 million people would fall into poverty.
So are you aware of the US population?
It would expand beyond US borders.
However, according to the topic, it clearly states, on balance, in the United States, the benefits of executive orders outweigh the harms. So you
Yeah, but
can't
it
regard
goes,
any global implications.
so we don't care about the other like 500 million people going into recession. The impact is still happening in the US. It's just expanding beyond borders.
So no, so I'm not saying that I don't care. I'm saying the topic clearly states in the US. So you can only limit your impacts to the US. There's no global implications.
All right, can I take a question?
Go ahead.
All right, so I'm gonna ask you a question, and I think that if you're unable to provide us like sufficient answer, like this is really important for today's debate. So my question is that if there's no executive orders, okay, and we don't have and Congress clearly fails to pass action in time, right, taking months if not years, then what's the alternative to dealing with crises such as natural disasters?
Okay, so first of all, this topic isn't about whether we should have executive orders or not. It's about weighing the benefits vs the harms. So I
So
don't
if the
think you're
harms,
sorry.
if the harm, okay, sorry, if the harms outweigh the benefits, then we should remove executive orders, right? So if there's no, you're saying that the harms outweigh the benefits. So I'm asking that if there's no executive orders, right, as we would supposedly be better off doing in the neg world, then how do we deal with disasters? What's the alternative?
See, I don't think you completely understand the topic. The topic is not about taking action. Like, it's not like, oh, if the harms are worse, then we should completely remove executive orders. It's simply weighing the benefits vs the harms.
All right, you can take a question.
Okay, so you talk about the Affordable Care Act, right?
Yes, we mentioned that in our second
But
comment.
are you aware that was passed, that first of all, that wasn't an executive order, and that was passed before Congress was gridlocked?
So that executive order, right? I mean, that was, yes, that was an act passed by Congress, but executive order was key to like implementing it because Congress.
Like, which executive order exactly?
Our executive orders during the Obama administration, we can send you the cards. The specific number we don't know because as
Uh,
I, it's like it's going to be like a 5-digit number. We don't have it memorized.
can you send me the card for that number? Because it was clearly passed by Congress before they were gridlocked, and I don't think it wasn't an executive order
So
passed by Obama.
Obama like passed the executive order during the 2008 financial crisis. So when the Affordable Care Act was passed, implementation was already ready. Can I take a question?
Go ahead.
So when you're arguing about like these past examples, right? So your whole contention is about previous executive orders and their harms, right? So
Mhm.
how does that relate to today?
Because, okay, first of all, topic asked to weigh the benefits vs the harms. Benefits in on balance, right? We can include all historical examples of the past. Besides the Patriot Act, its most abusive implementations are still in effect today. I think that's cross.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll wait for the card where it's certain, like you have the certain EO that was used to pass the Affordable Care Act.
All right, I'm sending the card already. All right, I sent the card.
Give me a second. Let me.
Once you receive it, I'll start time.
Will you guys be taking prep time for rebuttal?
Give me a quick sec. Let me read over the card.
You guys can do that during prep.
Okay, then we'll be starting running prep in 3, 2. So we're cutting prep there. That was a minute prep.
All right, so then without further ado, let's get into the rebuttal speech. So judges, once again, my name is Tanu Chaksha. I will be the second speaker on the negation side of today's debate. So judge, just as a quick off-time roadmap, I'm going to be going down straight their case on their examples, subpoints, everything, and then I'm going to be extending my own arguments. So then, all judges ready? Opponents ready? And partner ready? Then time will start in three, 2, 1, begin. First of all, we win on our framework of human rights because they fail to provide a framework of their own. This means, judges, that when looking and weighing this debate on your flow, the standard and lens of human rights must be prime of importance. On top of this, we also justify our standard because as of Simon Fraser University, it clearly states that the prime rhetorical benefit of human rights is that they are viewed as being so basic and so fundamental to human existence that they should trump any other consideration. Such as Justice Dworkin has argued that any conception of rights trumps other claims within a society, and human rights may be of higher order and supersede even other rights claims within society. Therefore, disregard all the impacts on the economy. Also, disregard the global implications of jobs, as the topic is clearly about the impacts in the U.S. Now, furthermore, let's move on to their argument about this, which was about preserving the union. In this argument, their first subpoint was that EOs can help in times when swift action is needed, like during times of natural disaster. However, we have multiple responses to this argument. First of all, we delink this argument. Congressional consultation requirements limit agility despite EOs. Warburton 24 states, fewer bills getting through to the president's desk means that the small number of mandatory ones that Congress must pass are getting longer, as lawmakers try to jam bills with policies that wouldn't otherwise get a vote. A longer bill takes more time to read, debate, and get voted on, slowing down the process further. Along with delinking, we also turn this argument. Policy volatility caused through instability from EOs, as we show in our case, in fact, damages credibility. The CSIS, as of April 1st, 2025, states, the current administration has failed to communicate coherent conditions under which tariffs or other tools will be applied, introducing a second layer of uncertainty. Foreign governments are left unsure of what actions might trigger economic penalties. Meanwhile, domestic actors face unpredictable swings in policy that undermine confidence and stability. Finally, there are much better and effective mechanisms to improve diplomatic relations instead of EOs and speed, which only end up worsening them due to instability, as we showed through our CSIS card. Dukeman 20 shows how diplomatic outcomes are improved when Congress as a whole is involved instead. And Judge, this shows that in fact EOs are actually doing worse, since Congress, when involved as a whole, is better, as shown by Dukeman 20 card. And lastly, Judge, they expressed their concerns about our currently gridlocked Congress and claim that this Congress is the main reason that we aren't able to rely on Congress. However, Judge, we actually turned this argument. KD 15 of the Harvard Law School states, with an quote for quote, with an increased use of EOs, members of Congress are less incentivized to come to a decision. Since they expect the executive to create policies and solve issues, they're more likely to argue long and hard as compared to coming to a compromise that benefits all. EOs also increase polarization, as with each EO, the party that doesn't control the executive fights tooth and nail to undo such policies, while the sitting party aims to defend the EO. This creates a positive feedback loop, as gridlock and polarization further cause the expansion of executive power. In conclusion, the EO severely harms government efficiency by exacerbating gridlock and polarization. Furthermore, their next whole argument was related to the economy. First, don't consider this under our framework. However, we also turn this argument because EOs are actually being used to completely ruin our economy, as seen through Trump tariffs. According to Penn Wharton, many trade models fail to capture the harm of Trump tariffs. The PNWNB projects Trump's tariffs will reduce long-run GDP and wages. These tariffs have triggered a 5.1% projected decline in GDP by 2054 and a 5% drop in wages equivalent to a $22,000 lifetime loss for middle-income households. These losses are twice as large as a revenue equivalent corporate tax increase from 21% to 36% and otherwise highly distorting tax. Furthermore, if they also want to extend their global impacts, we also show that by disrupting global supply chains and inviting retaliatory measures, the tariffs have eroded U.S. competitiveness. Meanwhile, reduced foreign purchases of U.S. bonds forced domestic households to absorb more federal debt. Furthermore, they talked about the Affordable Care Act. However, we have a response to this. We delink because, first of all, the first 2 years of Obama's presidency, Congress wasn't gridlocked at all as it was controlled by Democrats. This includes December 2009 when the act was passed by Senate and amendments to it that were passed in March 2010. This links their entire argument. And third, regarding the card on EO 13507, however, this EO was short-lived. On April 5th, 2011, President Obama issued Executive Order 13569, which revoked EO 13507, effectively dissolving the White House Office of Health Reform. And finally, for all these reasons, I urge a negation ballot. Thank you, Judge.
Real quick, can we get your evidence on policy volatility
Sure.
when you guys, yeah, on economy, yeah.
All right. Right. Just a sec. All right. Sure.
In addition to that, can I get the cards that you responded to natural disasters with? Any evidence you read on that?
Yeah, and we're not taking prep time. We're just calling for some evidence. And once we get that, we'll begin our prep time for rebuttal.
All right.
Just to clarify, for the natural disasters, what exactly did you want?
So you made like analytical responses, but any evidence you read?
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, I believe we sent it so you guys can start your prep.
Oh wait. Also related to our card.
Were you
Yeah, sorry. Also relate to our card about policy volatility. It looks like wait, oh sorry. I forgot that we had an email chain. All right, I just sent it in the email chain.
Can you give us the cut card?
Yeah, we're sending the cut card in the email chain right now. We just sent it.
for the like other evidence, or is that getting sent to you?
Because your partner sent email, and that doesn't have the link either, so we can't cross-reference.
And NSDA rules mandate that.
Yeah,
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 so
and it's,
we
yeah.
sent the author name and year, but we can also send the links. But meanwhile, could you guys like maybe like start your prep for a rebuttal?
Can we get the cut card first?
Yeah,
So,
because we want to read through it.
because we don't have links either, so like
We'll
cut
read through it in our prep time. Like we'll go through it just like once we get all the evidence.
we'll keep
That's
hands up if that's better.
One sec. My partner's connection is not great. He can't see all the emails on the email chain. Just give us a sec.
All right, so we just sent our Warburton 24 card related to polarization, the cut card just now. Um,
Okay, if you guys are ready.
What about the
Yeah, did you guys get Dukeman and CSIS?
Yeah, we sent.
All right, yeah, we'll start prep now. All right, I'll cut prep there. That was 1 minute and 20 seconds. So we have 1 minute and 40 seconds left. So the order of the speech of my 4 minute rebuttal is going to be going through our case and the responses they give us. And then we're gonna go down to our opponent's case and respond to framing. And then go down straight top down there the flow on our opponent's case. Is everyone ready? Then time will start in 3, 2, 1. Judge, you still vote after. Let's go straight into our case. On our first contention of natural disasters, they say that Congress slows down the process. That's exactly why we need executive orders. Ask yourself one simple question. If there aren't executive orders to deal with natural disasters and Congress clearly fails to take action, what's the alternative? We'll answer it for you. No action and the suffering of millions of lives. Vote AF on natural disasters. They don't have to be perfect. They just have to take quick action to solve the issue. But then, on our second argument on the economy, they say policy volatility from EOs damage credibility, but don't evaluate since the neg is literally cherry picking examples here. Let's give you evidence of 65,000 exit 6,500 executive orders over 65 years analyzed. Kenneth Lawande of the U Michigan finds that 75% of executive orders are never reversed. But then they talk about tariffs, but Trump's tariffs are being challenged right now and are likely to be struck down. Milheiser 25, a federal court held the very first hearing on whether potentially all of the tariffs has imposed will be struck down. It appears more likely than not that they will rule the tariffs unlawful. But then we show that tariffs are good because tariffs would bring $4 trillion in government revenue. So turn that because we are actually adding more economic benefit on the affirmative. But then they say executive flip-flop is harmful, but that's not a roadblock. It's called fluidity. NSP 25 EOs apart from legislative bills is that EOs can be altered or revoked by a future president. By this nature, it makes them more fluid regarding policy direction. It means that the changes they enact can be short-lived unless they gain broader support or are later codified into law. But then go to our third contention when we talk about taking action. They say Congress is gridlocked. Yes, this fits right into our contention because when Congress is gridlocked due to political polarization, that's why you need executive orders to go ahead and break that congressional gridlock. They're conceding to this argument. When they do take action, executive orders are necessary for implementation. But then, now that we've proved that our opponent's responses don't stand on our case, let's go straight into our opponent's case. First on framing, off the top, you can drop this framing as a whole and you stick to the default on the greatest safety and wellness for everyone on utilitarianism. Because like they say, the topic is on balance. It doesn't say on balance of human rights. It says on balance. But even then, when facing complex societal dilemmas, the question isn't whether individual human rights exist, but rather how to achieve the greatest good for the greatest number. Thus, you must evaluate utilitarianism, the framing to achieve the greatest good for the greatest number, because we solve for that too. But then, let's go straight into our opponent's contentions. First, on their argument of Japanese internment. Don't evaluate it. We have two responses. One, Executive Order 9066 authorized military zones, not internment. It didn't name Japanese Americans or demand detention. That came later from military directives and congressional funding. But then, if you don't believe that, it's crucial to know that the argument is non-unique because Wetzel 07 proves it would have happened anyways. The government's subsequent support for Executive Order 9066, even without the executive order, the internment would have still taken place. If Congress had been against the internment, they could have easily overturned it by the statute. But then, let's go into the second contention on the Patriot Act. Off the top, you don't evaluate the contention on the Patriot Act because the Patriot Act was passed by Congress. It's an act which is passed by Congress through legislation. This is not an executive order. We're weighing executive orders here, not Congress legislation. That's key. But then on surveillance, the one executive order that 12333 shows they're mistaken because it's been amended with much more soft by Executive Order 13470 by Bush. The document states that no covert action may be conducted when it's intended to influence United States political processes, public opinion, policies, or media. That's just two of many ways how this executive order became better. But then on the FBI searches, there isn't one single executive order that explicitly authorizes the FBI to be able to conduct home searches like that. The only act is like the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act and the Patriot Act, which are passed by Congress. But then on racial profiling, once again, no executive order actually authorizes racial profiling. The FBI and DOJ policies prohibit discrimination based on race, religion, and ethnicity. But then lastly, on real national security, link turn from our own contention because can I finish my sentence? Can I just finish my statement off time? All right. Yeah. Yeah, we'll just finish up our last sentence. Executive orders are allowing us to uphold national security by taking swift action to emergencies and economic crises that put 900 million people across the globe in a massive recession that only executive orders can solve. Thus, you linked in the contention, and for all these reasons, vote the affirmative and only the affirmative. Thank you. Ready for cross?
Yes, I am ready for cross. So
All right.
then, without further ado, let's get into crossfire. So, my time will start in 3, 2, 1, begin. All right, so since we have the first question, my first question to you will be that relate to our block towards your argument of economy. So what proof do you have? Because the proof actually is that even though at the end the International Court of Trade did challenge these tariffs, the Trump administration repealed the tariffs and made it so that they're still standing. So what exactly is your proof that they are going to be shot down?
Here, we're not talking about International Court of Trade. We're talking about the court in America that's turning it down. But even if you don't evaluate that, you guys are completely ignoring the fact that it's actually bringing more evidence. You're actually bringing more money into the economy. There's an inflow of money into the economy by tariffs. But a federal court shows that it's more likely than not that they will rule the tariffs are unlawful. It's the federal
Okay,
court.
but however,
Can
on
I
top
take
of okay, you could take the question.
Right. So you guys are talking about on your contention of Patriot Act. Do you realize that the Patriot Act was passed by Congress and executive orders have zero relation there?
All right. So yes. So the Patriot Act was a congressional act. However, what happened was that the most abusive implementations of the act specifically, things that authorize things like phone tracking and phone spying, was done through the implementation of EOs. Because after post 9/11, there were many different types of things that were done because of fear from terrorism. However, these EOs are the ones that added the most on top of the Patriot Act, which allowed for things like illegal phone spying and tracking. Could I take a question now?
Sorry, before you take a question, I just wanted to say that we're gonna ask for the evidence of those four executive orders, on FBI searches, homes, racial profiling, and countering real national security. We'd like all those executive orders and like what they do, just after cross for that
All right.
evidence.
So now related, for the follow-up question, right? So could you actually just talking about evidence, could you also after send us the card that says that all of these Trump tariffs, all of them are most likely to be shot down after cross?
Yes, we can send that right after cross.
All right. And then related to the all right, and then related to my main question. So you say that it would bring $4 trillion of US of dollars back into the US GDP. Am I correct?
Yes. And
However,
government revenue, not GDP, government revenue.
all right. However, for example, our card clearly states that personalized to families, it would cost $22,000 to each family, and on top of that, it would reduce U.S. GDP by $37 trillion. So doesn't that outweigh?
You can send us that evidence. We can send you the evidence too. But can you explain from your evidence how it's gonna bring $37 trillion of our $25 trillion economy down? Can you explain how that happens?
So basically, our proof is that what happens is because of things like retaliatory tariffs that many countries have already started to establish on the U.S., which has already cost thousands of dollars for each household to pay more. That's what ultimately causes over the long term by 2054 this less reduced GDP, and I
All right.
believe that's.
So as I said, the evidence on those three executive orders, for
Um,
FBI searches, homes, racial profiling, and countering real national security.
And then could we also have the card on
Yeah.
tariffs being shot down and the 4 trillion?
I'm giving that card right now. So
Yes.
that's the Trump
My partner is sending that
the
right
card
now.
that the tariffs are likely to be shut down by courts. That's the card you want, right?
Opponents. You guys wanted tariffs are likely to be shut down and $4 trillion in government revenue.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so we're sending over the evidence right now.
Yeah, so I'll send the Trump tariffs are likely to be shut down, and then my opponent will send the $4 trillion evidence.
You mean your partner?
So I'll send the court, and then my partner will send the $4
Yeah,
trillion.
4 trillion, yeah.
All right, I sent the likely to be shut down. And I think my partner is sending the other card right now.
We've sent over all of our evidence, waiting for our opponent's evidence.
Yes, we just sent our first one in related to the FBI. Now we're on our second.
Yeah. We'll let you know when we get them.
Wait, never mind. We wanted the card that says the executive order. The card mentions nothing about executive orders.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
So the card you sent, we asked for the specific card that authorized things like racial profiling, and then the card mentions
Yes,
nothing about executive orders.
because that's what you guys' argument is, so that's the card we asked for. Just wanted to clarify, is this the card you guys meant to send, or is this a mistake?
So, basically what we said is that, sorry, give me a
Okay.
sec.
This isn't Crossfire, so we're not asking for like an explanation. We can't do that. But what we are trying to do is just like understand if this is the right evidence you guys meant to send. It's a yes or no question.
No, we said this happened as a result, like
Okay. Okay.
not enabled racial profiling. Yeah, so my partner will just send it in a second.
As soon as you guys are done sending the evidence, will you guys be taking prep time?
Yes, and I think we finished sending the evidence.
All right. We've gotten two. I think we asked for three, so we'll wait for the last one to come over.
Okay, and I think, give me a sec.
Yes, I have just sent that one.
Cool. As soon as we get it, we'll start your prep time.
Yep. Yep, I just got it. You guys.
Yep. Start prep.
We'll be starting prep time 3, 2, 1. Okay, we'll cut prep there. That was 1 minute and 40. We have 20 seconds left. So we'll just type that in the chat. Give me a quick second. Okay. In that case, everyone ready? Okay. Then, off time. Hello again, judges. My name is Arna Parikh, speaking on the neg side of today's debate. Quick off-time roadmap. I'll be first going over the framework, our case, their case, and weighing throughout the summary by showing our impacts. Time begins on my next word. First framework, we win on framework of human rights. We've been asserting this framework ever since the constructive speech. They advocate for utilitarianism. Human rights is the greater good for the greater number of people. How can you consider anything else when basic human rights are at stake? From the rebuttal, we give you clear justification with our Simon Fraser University card, while they fail to provide any reason why utilitarianism should be evaluated above all. Also, we need to, as debaters, it's our job to show which case and which impacts directly fit into the framework. They fail to do so, and don't exactly state how their case fits into the framework of human rights. This shows that human rights must be the top priority when evaluating this debate. Next, on to our case. Our first contention is Japanese internment. They say that EO 9066 wasn't used for Japanese internment. However, according to the National Archives, the EO is titled Executive Order 9066, resulting in Japanese American incarceration. Therefore, you can drop the rebuttal, as even the government itself admits this EO was directly for Japanese internment. Our impacts were irreversible, severe human rights violations, economic impact 2.3 to 6 billion in Japanese Americans' properties and assets, and this affected over 120,000 innocent people. This falls directly under our framework of human rights. Our second contention is the Patriot Act. In the rebuttal, they only talk about EO 12,333, which is not at all the EO we were referring to. We were talking about EO 3024, which allows eagle wiretapping and tracking, so they have no rebuttal really. They also say that it's a congressional law and wasn't passed by EO, but as we show you and as we have asserted since the constructive, its most abusive implementations were passed through EO, such as 13,224. Now, our impacts are unconstitutional privacy violations, human rights abuses, weakening of democracy, hurting national security, misallocating resources, discrimination, racism, community alienation, stigma, and mental health issues. Now, on to their case. Their first contention is about preserving the union. They talk about responding to natural disasters, but they completely misunderstand our block. They say that we concede that Congress is slow. However, this is completely different. We show, in fact, despite EO's congressional oversight actually ends up limiting how fast EOs have to be passed. On top of this, we also disprove their claim that Congress is too slow to act by showing our Harvard KD15 card, something they have failed to interact with. EOs cause gridlock because they decentivize Congress to act. This is something they haven't responded to all around, so I don't think their impacts on natural disasters apply. Regarding their economic impacts, they don't. This doesn't tie into our framework of human rights at all. So you should completely drop this. And regarding their Obama's ACA, we have showed you with our multiple responses that they say that some EO was passed by Obama to set up a framework for the bill. But however, this was soon revoked after, and we can prove that it really doesn't help, as this bill was passed by Congress before Congress was gridlocked. For all these reasons, we urge a negative ballot. Thank you.
All right. I'll take running prep time. Time starts now. All right, I'll cut prep time. That was 50 seconds, so we have, I believe, 50 seconds left, right? All right, off time roadmap. What if the speech is going to be our case, their case, then weighing if time permits? Time will begin on my first word, which is now. Start on the AF case. You vote AF to keep the necessary EOs to keep our country running. First, off the top, any responses that aren't mentioned in summary shouldn't be evaluated because they aren't extended. Start on natural disasters. We're telling you that the natural disasters are devastating and they're only going to get worse. Yet their responses, they beat around the bush. They don't respond to the key question that we propose in today's debate. If the harms outweigh the benefits, then we should remove executive orders, right? That's what Neg is arguing. But then if we remove executive orders, how are we going to deal with natural disasters? Because Congress takes years to respond. Our evidence is from 2025 finding that Congress takes years to respond to disasters. So what's the alternative to dealing with natural disasters? You vote AF here. But then go to economy. We're telling you that Congress is inefficient in a time when we crucial facilitating swift action, and when they exercise unilateral authority, it creates economic growth, increasing the value of the dollar. For example, FDR created 12 million jobs through executive orders. They drop economy. They give you one response. They say that it doesn't fit into the human rights framework, so don't evaluate. First of all, we'll respond to the human rights framework and tell why you prefer utilitarianism. But even then, when people go into poverty and don't have the basic necessities to live, isn't that bad for human rights? It is. Now, then go to taking action. We're telling you that Congress fails how to implement laws, which is why we need executive orders to fill that gap. They say that Congress is gridlocked. That's exactly why Congress has been gridlocked. We're talking about right now. Congress is the most gridlocked it's been in 50 years. We need to take action. So on the rare occasions that Congress actually does implement orders, they still fail to implement how to actually implement the orders, which is why we need executive orders to facilitate how these executive orders work. You clearly vote out. But then go to the next case. You don't evaluate the firm. You prefer the default standard of utilitarianism. The topic says on balance where the EOs out the benefits outweigh the harms, not on balance concerning human rights. It says on balance clearly. You prefer the default standard of utilitarianism, the greatest good for all. They drop that response in their rebuttal. But then go to the next case. First they tell you about Japanese internment. They drop our response in a rebuttal, which non-uniques the whole argument because Congress would have passed it anyway. Because if Congress had opposed it, then they could have passed a statute overturning the executive order. And if the courts were against it, they could have struck it down. Rather, Congress passed a statute reinforcing the Japanese internment, and courts ruled that it was allowed. It would have happened anyway, so executive orders are not harmful in this regard. But then go on to surveillance. We asked them for cards. Judges who are on the email chain, look to the evidence. Not one of the cards that they send before the summary speech mention executive order. It's all about acts which Congress passed. None of it authorizes racial profiling. Those are the harmful acts of Congress and should not be pinned on EOs. Judge, to conclude, you vote AF on natural disasters, economy, and taking action, and you clearly negate on the whole case as our responses are clean dropped. For all of these reasons, vote AF.
Okay, so I think time for Grand Cross. Everyone ready?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll be starting Grand Cross in 3, 2, 1. So regarding your contention one about the subpoint on natural disasters, you talk about what would be the alternative if executive orders were removed. But the truth is we're not talking about whether or not executive orders will be removed. We're weighing the benefits vs the harms. So how does this tie in at all?
Can I answer that question?
Go ahead.
So if Neg wins today's debate, that means the harms outweigh the benefits, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if the harms of something outweighs the benefits, then obviously thinking, right, like logically, we should remove executive orders if the harms outweigh the benefits, obviously, right?
But
So
that's
then-
not what the topic states. Our job as
We're
debaters.
not talking about,
We're not
okay.
talking about the topic itself. We're talking about, like, if you guys prove that the harms outweigh the benefits, right? If that's what you're arguing, then we're arguing that in a world of logic, we should remove the executive orders if the harms outweigh the benefits. So then how are we going to deal with natural disasters?
So that's not necessary. So first of all, that's non-topical, and second of all, that's not necessarily.
right.
Hold
Okay.
on. I'm not done
Okay.
speaking. We could also be advocating that we should pass more congressional laws and executive orders. So let's strictly keep to the topic and not look at anything non-topical.
Okay.
So we
All right,
have-
Arna. Okay, Arna. Let me rephrase this for you in a topical way. If you don't have executive orders, what other means are there to respond to natural disasters in a swift manner?
Just keep in mind our evidence from 2025 telling you that Congress takes years to respond to natural disasters.
So what other option do we have? That's what I'm
Your-
asking.
Hold on. First of all, to respond to Aditya, your own evidence said it took 2 months. And
We
second
have
of all,
evidence on a year and a half and 2 months. The
Yeah, so-
average response is
Oh,
going
year and a half.
Yeah, but an executive order can solve it instantly as soon as they
And
hear
on top of
natural
and on
disasters.
top of that, we also state through our example, for example, other pandemics like during COVID-19, when Congress was able to respond in less than 2 months.
but
So that
pandemics aren't natural disasters.
We're talking about natural disasters. You're
Natural
moving on to
disasters.
pandemics and you're beating around the bush again.
Like,
So
you're
we're asking you a simple question.
head on. What's the answer to that question?
Like, for example, national emergencies like for example, 9/11, right? The Patriot Act was passed only a month after. Congress sees that they have to come together during these emergencies.
Okay.
And the
All
only
right.
hold on one
Yes,
second.
go ahead.
The only reason in recent years they haven't acted is because EOs decentivize the Congress to take action. The only reason Congress acts is because they realize policy must be kept moving forward and that they have to do something. But when all these EOs come into play, they are they're incentivized to not do anything and argue longer.
But
Okay,
even
let's say it this way, okay? Okay, let's say a natural disaster happens right now, okay? Congress needs to set a meeting. They need to be in agreement of 500 people. They all need to come into agreement on one action, okay? Let's say at the quickest that can take 36 hours. But when the president hears about this natural disaster instantly, he drafts up an executive order in an hour and a half, signs it, and puts it into action so that FEMA can come in and they can take play.
That
That's
however, you have no card, so basically you're painting a whole different picture. You just said 1.5 hours, which is something that is
okay.
never
I'm giving you an
justified.
example. Okay,
It's
maybe even if
quicker
it's
than
24
I think
hours.
that's
it's quicker than the
yes.
months it takes.
All right, I believe it's
to
cross.
pass Congress. Okay, that's cross.
You guys have 20 seconds of prep. Are you guys getting it?
Yeah, so we'll be taking prep starting 3, 2, hold on. 3, 2.
All right, I believe that's our preps. So, without further ado, let's get into the last speech. So, to all judges, just as a quick off-time roadmap, in this speech, I'm just going to be providing a few of the key voting issues for why you should vote for the negation side in today's debate. And yes. All right, so then my time will start in 3, 2, 1. Go. Judge, we win our framework of human rights with both of our contents of Japanese internment and the Patriot Act. Ever since the first speech, we have asserted our framework and proven why it's important through the clear cards from the University of Favorite Institute, and they fail to interact with our response. Human rights is the greater good for the greater amount of people itself. And on top of this, even if you don't buy this, Judge, they have no clear cards that prove why utilitarianism should be the standard favored in this framework, while we provide our clear-cut card from the University of Fraser that shows why human rights are the most important thing. It's the debaters' top priority to show how their impacts tie into the framework, and they fail to do that. They don't extend the Affordable Care Act impacts, and economy doesn't fall under the executive framework, and a natural disaster is biased. Furthermore, our second key voting issue is that we have full access to their whole case. Judge, here's a quick summary of the blocks that our opponents have simply failed to respond towards both of their subpoints. First of all, let's quickly go on to their first point about natural disasters. However, Judge, they dropped two vital blocks that completely dismantled their argument. Our first block in this argument was that we clearly showed that despite EOs, congressional oversight still caused a slowing down in the passing of the EO. However, Judge, even if you don't buy this block, we showed that through our key card that has went clean conceded throughout the debate that dismantles their main claim about how EOs are needed because Congress takes too much time to act. As we restate once again, our Harvard card clearly shows that the reason behind Congress being gridlocked is simply because of the fact that they rely too much on the president's EOs, meaning that Congress is ultimately unincentivized to act. This causes more and more polarization. Now, regarding their economic impact, completely disregard these for two reasons. First of all, as we showed to you judges, this is not at all specifically related to the clear and undisputed framework for today's debate, human rights. However, even if you don't buy this one, we also have the turn which clearly shows that EOs are doing much more economic harm than good, with Trump tariffs expected to cost at least each household over $22,000 in a lifetime and reduce GDP by $37 trillion, a fact they did not respond to. On top of this, they said that Trump tariffs are likely to be struck down. However, historical precedence is on our side, because even for past examples, on May 30th, the same type of speculations were present. However, at the end, even with a much more powerful court like the U.S. International Court of Trade, the Trump administration was ultimately able to repeal against the court and make it so that they still stand, showing historical precedence is on our side. And finally, Judge, for Japanese internment, we have impacts of 120,000 people, along with impacts on privacy infringement, which is human rights. And for all these reasons, I urge a negation ballot. Thank you, Judge.
We have 50 seconds of prep time. We'll take the rest of
Yeah,
it.
we'll take 50 seconds of running prep
Starting now.
starting now. All right, that is all the stuff I'll be needing. That was 40 seconds. As a quick off-time roadmap, my name is Jerry Granani. I'm the second speaker on the AF side. The order of the speech is going to be going through the 3 key voter issues on why you vote the affirmative. It's going to be going through our opponent's case, then our case, and then weighing. Is everyone ready? Then time will start in 3, 2, 1. It's an affirmative ballot for 3 key voters. First, on the neg case. On framing, we still stand on utilitarianism because A, we say that we evaluate on balance here for the American people. The topic does not say to evaluate on balance of human rights. This is key. They've dropped this whole response in summary and then they come back in final focus and respond to it. So don't evaluate next framing since it's dropped. You stand on utilitarianism framing. But then on the first contention, we established that you can't put Japanese internment under the gun because military orders actually caused the harm, not executive orders. On top of that, Congress and the courts were in support of it, would have passed it anyway. We've non-unique their contention completely, and they don't respond to this at all in summary. This is key because they've dropped their whole first contention as well as their framing, and then they're coming back in final focus and saying it. Don't allow that. But then the main reason you affirm is the Patriot Act contention. You can't believe what they tell you. We guide you to the email chain of evidence. What this shows is that clearly how none of their evidence on this Patriot Act contention even says the words executive order. They're clearly lying. If you don't believe me, I guide you to the email chain. But even then, surveillance was amended by another executive order. FBI, racial profiling, and national security. Through the email chain, you see and know that the words executive orders aren't even in the evidence. But then you can look to the flip side and you can trust the affirmative world to treat you well. On first, on natural disasters, as disasters worsen, Congress is too slow to respond. Executive orders are enabling fast, effective action. Once again, they can't answer the question on how to deal with natural disasters without Congress. They're beating around the bush here. You can see it. Everyone can see it. But then, second, the cleanest place to vote is the economy. They completely dropped this contention, and it's clearly bringing up preventing poverty for 900 million people. They dropped this contention. There's no extended response to summary, and tariffs weren't brought up in summary either. But then they bring it up in final focus again. Don't evaluate that. Don't allow that to happen. It's key to vote the AF here. But then, let's lastly weigh. The neg fails to weigh it. Also, automatically, you can prefer AF on all weighing mechanisms where we bring it up. But then, vote the AF on magnitude since 1 billion people far outweighs the 100,000 people affected they bring up. They don't do any impact defense, so it's clean AF. You vote AF on impacts. But then, vote AF on probability because our evidence actually says the words executive orders and it's actually topical. So, Judge, for all these reasons, it is a clear affirmative ballot and nothing but an affirmative ballot. Thank you very much. That was a great debate, guys.
Good debate, you guys.
Really great debate. Thank you so much for all judges.
Yeah, thank you, judges.
Thank you, judges.